Take 47. Yeah, I've done literally 47 takes trying to get this audio right.
Don't judge me.
Anyways, it's been a long time since I've done one of these. I thought this was about time I did one. So we're talking about Outriders. Outriders is a new single-player RPG game with co-op gameplay, three-person max team play with spells and abilities, with a punishing endgame with the amount of challenge it adds, and we'll get into that later. First, I want to talk about a little bit about the game itself. It is published by Square Enix and developed, because people seem to get these two confused a lot. It's developed by People Can Fly, the people who made Bulletstorm and so forth. So now this game is pretty much, I want to say, in between great and not so great, because it does have some issues. I think some of those can be weeded out. Honestly, I think so. So for the most part, I'm just gonna focus on game aspects. Not simple. I'm not gonna focus on what other people have been focusing on, which is the easy shit to talk about, which is the server connectivity and shit like that. I just don't understand the point of complaining about bugs that are going to be fixed, eventually, etc., etc. I'd rather talk about things that are harder to change, which is game style, game aspects, and stuff like that. So, I'm going to start off talking about the challenge of the game now, or what challenge it has to offer. Now, I'm not really into the, Bloodborne, Dark Souls challenge type tier games. But as always, these reviews are based off of my opinion and my opinion alone. Yes, I might pull snippets from my friends, but overall, I'm just going to give my opinion. And personally, I think the game's balance is around an 8 out of 10. It needs some tweaking, but it's I think it's a decent challenge. Now, the challenge for story mode goes from world tier 1 to 15. These tiers will increase automatically as you progress through the game. Uh, Whether you're upgrading your character, killing things, even if you stay at level tier 3 or 1 through the whole game just to get through the story, you can still make progress once you beat the game and hit level 30 even. So these challenge tiers can be changed on the fly with no penalty, other than getting your ass pushed in.
Are we not saying phrasing anymore?
Now, there is a second tier of difficulty, which is only seen in the end game, which we'll talk about later on. But it's 1 to 15 for PvE for the story, and then there is 1 to 15 in the end game, which is a whole completely separate challenge tier. Now, so people who come from Avengers are going to appreciate this next thing. The game has a very diverse amount of enemies to kill, so you're not just killing robots and humans and two boring bosses with some really boring ass, I don't know, strategy or whatever they call it. And so you got multiple types of enemies to fight in this game, which is a nice refresher as opposed to Avengers. So the diversity doesn't stop right in the enemies though. They also have a diverse amount of gear, diverse amount of weapon designs, and weapons themselves. Weapon and gear design is very diverse in this game, and I actually enjoy it. Um, so that's pretty much that's a good one. So now let's move on to the art style. The art style is very reminiscent of Remnant from the Ashes, and I dig that. It's pretty good, especially on ultra settings on a 1440p monitor. It is very crisp, very sexy. I enjoy it a lot. So if you're into that kind of art style, it's pretty good. I do appreciate the fact that they tried, and I emphasize the word tried, to give you a lot of things to do in the game post game, but at the same time, there's kind of controversy with that, and I might get into that later. But right now, I'm just going to tell you what is in the game. So you have the story mode, which if you rush through, it'll take you probably like 6 hours or so if you rush through it. Um, And the only way I think you would be able to do that is if you stayed on tier 1. Tiered 1 or 3 or 5. Depending, I would say don't go, if you're just trying to rush, I'd say don't go above 5. But there's a lot of side quests that you can do along the way that adds like a bit of lore to it. Now, there's a lot you can do, and as you saw my accumulated playtime, and the amount of achievements I have, it's a very addicting game, at least for me. I mean, even despite the latest big patch, I'm still playing. So there's I'm getting off track. Getting back to the game, that there's PvE, there's a story, and then there's side quests, there's bounty hunter missions, and then there's beast hunt missions, which a lot of people are referring to as monster hunter shit. After that, then there's the end game, which is the only way to get better gear, which are basically expeditions. Expeditions are essentially speed runs. That's literally all they are. They're speed runs. The faster you are, the better gear you get. So that's pretty much all they have to do in the game at the moment in terms of gameplay, unless you want to just spend all day crafting gear. I will give them some more credit in terms of that it is a game that has as of recording this, I believe it's working now, which is crossplay across all consoles and platforms. I believe, I'm using air quotes when I say this, I believe it's working right now. Don't shoot me if it's not, okay? Don't get mad at me if you convince your buddies to get the game and you're all like on different platforms and you're like, well, why isn't crossplay working? He said it was working. And I'll be like, okay. I said it was working at the time. Okay? At the time. I enjoy the crafting. I mean, if you can even call it crafting, I would more like call it modding rather than crafting, because you're not really making anything. At least in my opinion, the word craft means you're making something from scratch. That's my opinion of crafting. So I wouldn't necessarily call it crafting. I call it modding. Because that's literally all you're doing. You're modding your current gear. You're not making anything new. You're modding your current gear. So I enjoy the modding in the game. It's very fun, at least to me. Now, it's apparently, the more I hang out in Twitch chats, a lot of people don't realize this, and that's that every single game, you're not going to, and this is factual, you cannot win this argument if you're on that side. It is factual that every single game, whether it is a single player or not, has grind. The only difference is every game hides the grind in their own way. Some grinds are obvious and notable and boring. Some grinds are obvious, notable, and fun. It's really all about how you enjoy it and if it's fun. So I enjoy the grind that the game offers, pretty much. I think it's fun. That's something I can get behind. So another thing about this, as someone who likes to play, multiplayer games and shit like that, is it just me, or does it seem like multiplayer games are becoming harder and harder to play with your friends with? Like, there are games that make joining your friends such a goddamn chore nowadays, and they're so fucking chaotic, and it's like, really? Really? Why do I have to put two sticks together, spank a chicken on its ass, make love to a goat? Don't do that.
Don't judge me.
I'm not into bestiality, okay? Don't get it twisted. But, and just to make a multiplayer game function work. At least that's what it feels like nowadays. And it drives me up the fucking wall, But Outriders multiplayer is actually fairly simple. So as regardless if it has problems or not, which it does, at the time of recording, it does. It's kind of a latency nightmare because it is peer to peer, which is terrible, but it's very flawless and it's easy to get into. There's a matchmaking system which is easy to get into. If you want to invite a friend, you can easily do that. You can either do that from the Steam menu. I'm using Steam because I know it's on other platforms. I'm using Steam because that's where I have it on. You can use it from Steam as friends list, invite game, join game, or you have something called a friend game code or game code that you give someone. So it's pretty easy to get into. Unfortunately, that is all I can say on the positive side. So we are going to get into the dislikes. Try not to ramble, but I am what I am, okay?
Don't judge me.
I'm doing what I can. So, the dislikes. The first thing that annoyed the shit out of me with this game is that it's overly cinematic. Now, what I mean by this is there's a lot of useless and pointless cinematics. And I'm talking about every time you go through a door, you slip through a crack in the wall, or you go through a door, or you jump up and down something, or you go down a cart or something, they put you in a small ass cutscene, and it's irritating as hell because it serves literally no purpose. Now, some people have said that it's to hide a loading screen, but then if that was the case, sometimes they would put you in one of these cutscenes just to throw you into an actual loading screen. So it was very unnecessary, very pointless, and I think that it never should have been made into an actual cutscene because they're doing a lot of weird shit in this game with the cinematography but they're in the bounty system. When you kill your bounty, you actually execute them assassination style. So you walk up to them and then you shoot them in the head. And then there's one where you literally you knock the guy on his ass and shoot him in the head. That one's fine. So far I've seen two sequences. There's one where you try and execute the guy, up close in the head. That's the shitty one. But then there's one where you literally like kick him in the chest and he falls on his back and you shoot him in the head. That one is perfectly fine. But the problem is with the first one. Now, the problem with this is they're gonna show you up close with you holding your gun to his head, and then right when you're about to shoot him, they pan away to show your face, and then once you shoot, they try and pan right back to him to show you him falling down, and it's very jittery. It's very poor. You'll see. Like I said, another thing that I didn't like was some of the boss fights were poorly constructed. Or some of the missions, I should say, probably that and the boss fights were poorly constructed because it felt kind of like a roguelike where even if you had like 3 phases and you died in phase 3, you would literally have to start all over. Like there's no checkpoints in these missions. There's no checkpoint in these missions at all. So at the same time, it's like, well, shit, I just spent 20 minutes getting to this boss, and now because I'm gonna split into another thing that pisses me off right now because I have to say that in order to continue on. There's a problem. There's a problem with the tracking, and that's a huge problem. That is a huge fucking problem that needs to be addressed immediately. Is that there are certain bosses or monsters in this game that have a telegraph attack, and you can perfectly dodge it easily, but for some reason the still manages to home onto you and hit you. So it's severely infuriating, especially on the end game when every second matters. This is the kind of game where the end game requires smooth gameplay, 30 to 60 frames. No hiccups, nothing. You have to have smooth gameplay to really experience the end game of this. It's very high tier. High tier is very hard. So, moving back to the boss fights, there's a terrible point where if you go all the way to phase 3 and you die, you gotta start all over. And that's it. That annoys the hell out of me. Like, I wish there were checkpoints. So, now we're going to talk about the story. The story is take it or leave it. Some people enjoy it. Some people have no problems with it. some people like it but feel disjointed, feel disconnected at times. Because personally, I feel like they did a bad job at delivering it most of the time because this plays into their terrible cinematography. Sometimes I'm in the middle of hearing an arch plotline from dialogue, audio dialogue, and they'll put it through a really bad filter because you're far away, or if I'm in the middle of the dialogue, they'll just put in a cutscene and it completely cuts the dialogue off. And I'm like, well, what happened to Princess Yo-Yo? Like, what the fuck? What happened to Princess Yo-Yo? What the hell? So and that's a disjointed feeling, to be honest. That annoys the shit out of me personally. I don't like it. It's very annoying. It is what it is. But hey, another thing about the story, and I don't really think this is story. Another thing we're going to talk about, another dislike, is the sound balance in this game. Now, this could be fixed. This is probably going to go against what I said earlier about not wanting to talk about bugs. This might be the only bug that I might talk about, but it was very jarring from the get-go, which is the sound balance is pretty bad in the game. So there are abilities. This is kind of a meme at this point when you're playing a trickster. There's a skill that throws out a dome bubble that will literally blow your eardrums out. And this thing is like loud as fuck, yet some other abilities are like as soft as a wet fart. You got the main volume fighting against sound effects versus dialogue and shit like that, and it turns into a never-ending battle with audio adjustments throughout the entirety of the game. The game is lacking loadouts. This game requires, in my opinion, it requires loadouts if you want to experiment with builds, because the way the builds work, they're heavily tied to mods. And the problem with that is you can only change out one mod per item. You can't change out both mods that it comes with. You can only change out one. And the other one is going to be locked. One mod is always going to be locked in regardless. So unless you get a piece of gear that already comes with a mod that you already wanted, or you hoarded a bunch of gear with different mods, actually getting a full effect of your new build or a new build effectively is going to be really impossible because, like I said, mods are really tied to your build. Builds are heavily reliant on mods. And without the right mod, your build is not going to be as effective as it could be. So having loadouts with multiple gear setups would be fucking fantastic. Please and thank you. We're going to talk about the map now. The big scary map. Overall, I would give the map a 5 out of 10. It's a good map, but it needs a lot of work. It's damn near impossible to navigate the damn thing because you can't tell which way you're facing, you can't tell where you are or where your party is on the map. All it does is tell you that you're in the zone. That's it. So I think like if they would add some markers, some moving markers, a freaking legend, a legend would be great. And just, yeah, that's pretty much all they need to do. They need to add some movable markers for where you and your party is, which way you're facing, and a legend. That would make the map an easy 10 out of 10 for me. Easy 10 out of 10. Easy. Okay, so now, another thing with the skill tree that I'm not a fan of is that you have unlimited resets. That's good. You're not taxed for resetting your spec. The problem is you have to reset the entire tree. Even if you want to just move 1 point, you have to respec the entire tree, and that is quite annoying when it gets to that point. When you do it over and over and over. So there is no, I'm gonna undo 1 point, undo 2 or 3 points. You literally have to refresh. You have to redo the entire tree every single time you want to respec, and that is insanely annoying. I'm not saying take away the whole tree reset. I'm saying give us the option to unspec one a couple points instead of just wiping the whole damn tree. Another thing I want to talk about is the Legos, which is my definition for legendaries. The legendaries don't feel like actual legendaries. The only thing that they're legendary in aspect of is their design. That's literally the only thing legendary about them, is their design. Because the mods are what make the gear, to be honest, and it's what makes the weapon and what makes the gear. And you can break down legendaries and take those mods and put them in a purple piece of gear. It doesn't mean that the epic piece of gear is legendary now. So, in reference, honestly, they're only legendary in terms of design. And they got some great designs. It's just they're piss poor weak. There's like, it's like 9 times out of 10 throughout the game, you're rarely going to get a good legendary. And you're just going to end up breaking it down. Because you're going to get a purple that's better in like 2 levels or something. So I really feel like they missed the mark with the legendaries and making them truly unique. Great design though, great 10 out of 10 design. I love the designs of the weapons and the gear, but the whole functionality of them is just straight out garbage. They're not legendary at all. I honestly I'm disappointed. Not in the design, like I said, 10 out of 10, but everything else is just like, I could have just got those from a purple or something, you know. It just it takes it away from me. So the biggest complaint I have with this game is the multiplayer function itself, because it doesn't quite scale. I'm trying to think of the right word for it. It doesn't scale that well when you're with people. And the other problem is the actual connectivity, the performance. The performance is completely... It's so bad. With people, even people with fiber who are trying to play are rubber banding everywhere. It's a complete and utter nightmare. And this is something that I hope that they can get fixed. They said they're looking at it, but at the same time, apparently it's not a easy fix. I'm not an armchair developer. I don't have any developer experience. I don't know how hard or how easy it is to fix. I'm just gonna say that I want it fixed. I believe that it's going to kill the multiplayer aspect of said game, because the end, unless you're like, I mean, I doubt there are people who bought this for single player only, but there's also people who bought it to play with friends. Me particularly, because I'm a pack animal. I would never have bought this if I had not planned on playing it with people. So, the fact that it's so hard to play, it's a little disheartening. But overall, my overall feel and review of the game, it's a great fucking game. I had a blast. Obviously, I spent over 83 hours in it, and I'm still playing it after this review goes out. I really hope they get all these issues that are plaguing the game right now. I hope they fix the connectivity issues. I hope they fix the multiplayer performance, and I hope they, walk back some of their controversial changes, or at least make up for them. So, overall, I would say I want to give it a score, but at the same time, I feel like in 2021, score, a 1 out of 10 scores are kind of outdated at this point. As a good friend of mine once said that, if the game is for you, if you enjoy this and that, then you'll enjoy this. So I think I'm going to do away with the score rating and just say that if you enjoy Division 2, Destiny, Borderlands, Avengers, those kind of games, if you enjoy co-op RPGs with a bit of a challenge, with some cool skills and a great aesthetic, you're going to love this game. If you can play it. I'm just going to say that. If you can play it. You shouldn't have any issues performance-wise on single player. Now, they have said that to use DX11. Now, all my recorded footage is from a 1440p resolution monitor on ultra graphics. So any hitches you see might be from that, it might not be. But if I'm with people in the game, 100% any hitches you see are going to be from the performance. So, and I will be uploading some multiplayer game aspects, new stuff. So overall, I think it's worth the $60. I think it's a great game. I think People Can Fly did a great job. I hope that we get DLC like Remnant did, because this is like they said, this is not a live service game. So there's no, that's the difference between this and Destiny and Division and Avengers. Those are all live service pseudo MMOs. This is straight up an RPG, you know. So I hope that they make DLC for this, because I loved it. There's a lot left to be explained. I want more. Overall, I feel like this game has like a shelf life of maybe 3 months. 3 months. Depending on how hardcore you go. I would say for a no lifer, it probably has like the shelf life of a month. A month and a half maybe. It really depends on your degree of no lifer. Because a no lifer friend of mine has like over 100 hours, and she already seemed like she hit the peak of the game. So, and that was like in a week. But it really depends on your degree. So like a casual player, you're probably gonna get, if you put like maybe 2 or 3 hours in it per every other day, you've got an easy 3 to 4 months shelf life for this game, and it's well worth $60. Now you can get it on all platforms. Like I said at the beginning of this, I'm pretty sure it's gonna be $60 on every platform except it is on the Game Pass for Xbox. So if you have an Xbox and you have Game Pass, you can try it for free. If you have a PC and you want to play it on Stadia, or I can't quote for Stadia because I don't know anything about Stadia. Honestly, I don't know why people are still playing it on Stadia. Stadia is kind of Stadia. So if you're on PC, there is a demo. I believe on the Epic Store and on the Steam Store. Demo's free. The demo is, I wouldn't say endless. It's never gonna go away. And all your progress that you make in the demo will carry on into the full game if you buy it. But have to make sure you buy it on the same platform that you play the demo on. Anyways, that's it for me, and that's my take. That's my emo, in my opinion, review on Outriders. Bye. Peace!